Steven here for Author Chef Movie Night to talk to you about physical media, about Blu-rays, 4Ks, and the way we like to buy and own our movies and TV shows. Although, today, I'm not talking about physical media. But, that said, if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, please do so because that is the primary focus of what we do here is physical media talk. 4Ks, Blu-rays, movies, all that stuff. But I like to talk about movies also. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little Pushing 100 update. Pushing 100 is my project where I'm seeing 100 new release films in theater in 1 year. I made that New Year's resolution and I'm sticking to it, and I'm at around 64 movies so far. So I'm right on target, as you have to average something like 2 movies a week, around 8 movies a month. So I'm right where I need to be. I've been slacking a little bit on giving you guys review updates. I like to do little quickie updates of the movies that I've seen. So let me just recap now with a few movies, well, the movies that I saw in August. Some of these you can still see in theater. Some of them are on other platforms now. So maybe this will help you decide if you want to spend the time to watch them or not. First movie I want to talk about from August is Bullet Train. That movie stars Brad Pitt, and who else is in there? Let me just pull this baby up so that I can... I've got the trusty box office mojo up here. Brad Pitt, Joey King, Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's right. That's the name I was trying to remember. Brian Tyler Henry. Okay, so this movie follows a group of assassins, not connected assassins, all on a bullet train for the same goal. Trying to obtain, a plot tool, essentially. So that's basically the setup. That's basically the story. What ensues are some Guy Ritchie-style action sequences, fight scenes, that kind of thing. The director of this movie was a stunt coordinator, and you can tell because some of the fight scenes are really pretty fun. Brad Pitt in an action comedy role is always fun. And there are a few side characters, additional characters here, that are really entertaining. The problem is there's not much meat on the bone. And now you don't always have to have a multi-layered story with, various plot lines and deep storytelling, but there needs to be a little bit of something there to latch onto. And there really just isn't much. It's kind of messy in that it wants to be a Guy Ritchie movie or maybe something like Smoking Aces, but it just doesn't quite hit the nail on the head. It's, in the end of the day, it's okay. There's some decent fight scenes. Some of the actors are very entertaining, like charismatic to watch, but overall it's just pretty forgettable. And the last act of this movie, the CGI is so bad it looks like a cartoon. I'm just saying. It ain't good, boys. Bodies, bodies, bodies. This is the A24 horror movie that everybody was hype about. It's a social commentary on TikTok culture. It's generally riffing on social media, but I think it's very specific to TikTok and a little bit of Instagram culture. The movie is okay. It's not a horror movie. It was billed as a horror movie. It's more of a whodunit kind of mystery. The problem I had with this movie is while it's making a statement about the types of people that are on that are influencers, not just people, but influencers in particular that are on TikTok and Instagram, it makes that statement by focusing in on the worst of those people. I hated everyone in this movie. I hated every character. The actors were good, and their success is evident in the fact that I really hated their characters. And I don't have to really love everyone in a movie. I love Devil's Rejects, and there's not a likable person in that movie, but I have to have some sort of way to connect with them, and I just couldn't stand these people, and I wanted them all to just die, and none of them died in brutal enough ways to suit me. There's a reasonable, plot device in the third act that's pretty entertaining. But overall, I didn't like this movie. I felt cinematically, it looked like a TV movie. It didn't have a cinematic look. Now, that kind of might be okay for a movie riffing on social media, but it just didn't feel like it was worthy of the theatrical experience to me. I didn't think it was very good. Fall looked like hot garbage. The trailer looked like hot garbage, but I had to see it anyway. So, Fall tells the story of 2 young women that decide to climb one of the tallest towers in the country. One of them has been through, well, both of them technically have been through a traumatic event, but it makes one of them not want to climb anymore. But her friend, who is a social media influencer, this is getting old already, convinces her to go climb with her, this thing that it would reinvigorate their friendship and help her get past their previous trauma. The physics of the tower are ridiculous and don't make sense. The CGI of the tower is ugly and fake looking very often. One of the two main characters is very unlikable most of the time. So it's not very good. It's not very good. Positives though. When the elevation parts work, I did find myself clenching up a few times when they worked. Like holy shit, this is high. Even though there were plenty of signs and reasons why they should have stopped climbing in the first few feet of the climb. But hey, once we're past that, there's a few scenes that actually seem to kind of work pretty good, even though it's CGI. And the last act of this movie just went balls out. It just went balls out, and I gotta respect the filmmakers because they went in directions and did things I did not anticipate. I'd like to revisit this movie in an R-rated version because this movie is notable because they had to use some voice, creating algorithms to take out all the F-bombs because they wanted to push it down to a PG-13, and there were a lot of F-bombs in the original cut of the movie. I'd like to see this with those F-bombs back in place. Just to see if not that just having F-bombs helps, but I'd like to see it as it was originally intended. Okay, now we're talking about Beast, this Idris Elba movie where he is reconnecting with his two daughters on a African trip. They go on a safari, shenanigans happen, and they end up being stalked by a lion. We've seen this kind of story before. This is really Cujo with a lion. I think the movie is highly elevated by Idris Elba. He's such a charismatic dude and a great actor and so much fun to watch. In this movie, I will say that some of the thrills actually work. The lion CGI is not good. It's not good, but not as bad as the bear CGI from Prey. I'll say that. It is better than that. But, giving into the crappy CGI of the lion, some of the thrills work. It's fun. It's very slim, this movie. It gets to the point fast. It sets up the characters. We know who everybody is, why they exist within this world, and we get into the action. So I do appreciate that. The last act has a really ridiculous, almost laughable scene in it that is refreshing and kind of fun. I mean, it's not a good movie, but I had a reasonable time with it. It's a pretty fun watch. It may only be a single watch movie, but I recommend. It may be something that loses its oomph at home, though. This was more fun in the theater with a gigantic screen and really loud sound system. But yeah, it was all right. It was better than I thought it was going to be. Let's put it that way. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few movies that I actually have seen in September, but they came out in August. First is 3,000 Years of Longing. This is a Tilda Swinton Idris Elba film directed by George Miller, who previously gave us the Road Warrior movies, but a lot of people don't know that he also did Babe in the City and Happy Feet, so he's quite an eclectic director. And I think if you slammed Happy Feet and Road Warrior Fury Road together, you might get a little bit of the visual flair that's in 3,000 Years of Longing. 3,000 Years of Longing tells the story of a woman who finds a magic bottle and cracks it open, and a genie pops out, who is Idris Elba. And he tells the story of how he was incarcerated in said bottle multiple times. And she tells her backstory also back to him. This is a movie about storytelling, not just in its overt theme that they're telling each other stories, but it is a social commentary kind of on the art of storytelling. Now, I think it also proves that not all types of storytelling can cross different mediums. Because while the story of this movie, I say that word a lot, is set up that they're telling stories, because they're telling stories, it often feels like dragging long bits of exposition until we get to points where they actually are showing the story and not telling it. And in that way, I don't think, as much as it is trying to have a point by doing that, I don't think it works as well as a movie. The two leads are great. They riff off each other very well. And I do really like the fairy tale aspect to it. As much as I feel like it often doesn't work in the main part of the movie, I think it wraps itself back around by the third act. And I was pleased with it at the end. Overall, I'm just going to say it's okay, though. It's an okay movie. It's a single watch movie. I think the CGI is pretty meh most of the time, but it's also highly stylized, so it's not trying to be necessarily completely real. It's more stylized and fantasy, so the fact that it doesn't bother me that the way it looks as bad as The Lion bothered me in Beast or The Tower bothered me in Fall, for example, because those should be real. This is fantasy, so it gets a little bit of leeway. I think it's okay. It might be something I should revisit once it's out on physical media. I might actually revisit it again because I really did kind of enjoy by the end of it a lot of aspects of the movie. Randomly, I discovered that Orphan First Kill was showing in my theater. I know that as a streaming movie. It's Paramount Plus, I guess. But I could see it. It would count toward my theatrical experiences for the year. It's a horror movie, so I'm into it. So I saw that at the theater. I had to jump in and give it a go. So it is a prequel to the original Orphan movie. It stars Isabella Fuhrman. Again, Julia Stiles is in this one. And Rosa Sutherland also. So it is a prequel to the original movie. And she is reprising her role, which is it's problematic because she was already kind of too old in the previous movie, but they made it work. In this one, they had to do a lot of CGI work on her face to make her younger looking, and boy, can you tell. You can probably tell a whole lot more watching it in theater. What's interesting is they applied this sort of Gaussian-like blur to the entire movie, and I'm sure that was an attempt to help cover the CGI on her face. And it had this sort of 80s glamour shots thing happening. But once I settled into it, it felt kind of like a 70s movie in that way. And I kind of went with it. Also, I like Julia Stiles. I'm always a fan of her. And I liked the original movie. At the end of the day, Orphan First Kill is not a good movie. But in kind of like the same way as Fall, this movie goes balls to the wall. And it really tries to do something different, and it tries to own itself and be what it's supposed to be. I think there's some parts in here where the movie is not taking itself seriously, and I found myself laughing and having a great time with this movie. This is different than Fall, though. Fall was like, okay, well, that was a little bit of a surprise, and, the third act was fun and whatever, I saw it. This one, I'll buy the physical media release of this one and revisit it in a double feature with the first film. It's fun, you guys. It's not good, but it's fun. So I went specifically to a special theater to see Breaking. It stars John Boyega. And it's not that I was particularly interested in the story. I just needed to see movies for my Push It 100. And John Boyega is good, so I was hoping this would be a good movie. This movie tells the story of a guy who takes a bomb into a bank and threatens to blow it up unless the media and the world essentially listens to his story about how his war, his vet pension money was taken from him by the government. This is based on a true story, which is great, and I get that, but the formula of this movie is so predictable and so familiar. This has been done over and over and over again, even to some degree with Ambulance. I never say that movie the name of that movie in a way that sounds right in my head. But yeah, we've seen this thing over and over and over again. And this brings nothing new to the party except some weird, forced, like wedged in comic book references. And I'm not saying that those references maybe didn't actually happen in the real story. I don't know. I doubt it, though, because they really felt out of place and forced. And there's a couple of moments of humor that don't make a lot of sense either, tonally, in this movie. That said, there's a couple of great moments in here, character beats that work and were emotional and powerful. But overall, this is not a good movie. It is completely predictable, completely feeling like a TV movie. It had no cinematic value whatsoever, looked very bland and flat, looked like a TV movie, played like a TV movie, was written like a TV movie. So, there you go. All right, you guys, that's the movies that I've seen in that came out in August and I saw in August. There are other movies that came out in July that I saw probably in August also, but I didn't go back that far to review those. So if you want to really get 100% of every movie that I see, my biggest recommendation is to follow me on Letterboxd, because I review every single movie I see in the theater. I don't always write it up, but I at least give it a star rating, but most of the time I'm writing stuff. And also follow my TikTok at OTS Movies, because I post as I'm going into the theater and as I'm coming out of the theater. So they are really up to date as far as this. Otherwise, once in a while, I'll try and review a handful of movies for you and keep you up to date on where we are. So right now, as of this recording, we're at 64 films. Doing good. Going to keep on pushing. Got a lot of movies left to see before the end of the year. Until next we meet, pull something cool off the shelf, share it with friends and family, and remind them why physical media is the best way to watch films and TV at home. I'll see you guys on the next one.